Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you as usual. But again, it just seems like I can't. Every time I think I have the show that I want, something comes up and I got to make a little change. Anyway, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. AVQ, numero uno in the list today. Welcome aboard, AVQ from Brooklyn, New York. El Señor Rodney. Joanne from Los Angeles, California. Welcome aboard. We also have in the house Patrick Magner, who says meow from Houston, Texas. Yvette Avery Herod, our expert on everything labor out of Atlanta, Georgia. May Wood out of Long Beach, California. Lisa Blair out of Atlanta, Georgia. We also have Harry Denson, of course, from Missouri City, Texas. And Lee the Bearcat from Austin, Texas. Folks in the chat, in the Substack, well, you know how that goes. It takes a while before you start coming in and before I start seeing things, etc. So as more of you come in on Substack, we'll get all of that. We'll start calling you out as you tell me the city, state that you're in. We missed the first few dozen as usual. Anyway, folks, let's see. Rodden says in his chat here, para ver, Snopes, 47% of Republicans would still vote for Trump, even if implicated in Epstein crime. Survey found, rated true. Ask 1,000 American voters if Trump was officially implicated in Epstein's sex trafficking activities, would this make you more likely to vote for another party, or would it not affect your vote? 47% of Republicans said such a relation would not affect their vote. You read that right. 47% of red hats are down with a pedophile as their leader. I am sorry, that is effing crazy. That is out from Bradden. I want you to, Hillary Clinton called a sect within the MAGA base deplorables, and people really gave her hell for saying that. A lot of us said, well, you can think that stuff, but should you really say it? But I think we have to take that seriously. I think that you have American citizens that would elect a pedophile, even knowing he is a pedophile. That 47% of Republicans, this isn't all of America. Remember, this is a very small amount of people. 47% of maybe 30% of the voting population. That turns out to be just under probably 15 to 18%. So 15 to 18% of Americans would actually vote for a pedophile and not be concerned about the people that they've harmed, that person have harmed, and what he would likely to do, because he is doing it right now, harm others. I don't know, but I don't know how else I don't see how you do not classify that person as deplorable. Can anybody tell me why they shouldn't? Why wouldn't that person be considered deplorable? I don't know why. Let's ask is there any of our MAGA folks in here? Eric, let me ask you, if you found out that Donald Trump was in fact implicated with Epstein and was a pedophile, would you still vote for him? I am very, very curious because I think that is the actual definition of someone being deplorable, and that I couldn't argue against. What are your thoughts, my chat folks? What are your thoughts? I am very curious about that. What are your thoughts? All right, Michael also said the Independent. This was worse than the last time Trump met Zelensky. It was deeply weird analysis. The low point among a sea of low points was probably the U.S. president laughing and saying, "So you are saying, if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections?" Trump said during the war, "You can't have elections. So let me just see. 3.5 years from now, if we happen to be in a war, somebody no more elections, that's good. Fascism is a Republican playbook. Understand the ideas." Actually, you know what? Let me play what I did yesterday for those who didn't see it. Here we go. This is what I played yesterday because I actually have that on tape. Donald Trump said something in his meeting with Zelensky today that everybody better pay attention to. As we see Donald Trump militarize Los Angeles, as we see Donald Trump militarize DC, as we see Donald Trump try testing ICE, beating up on people and trying to create disruption in the country, I want you to listen to this. This is one of his plans. He doesn't have anything concrete yet, but he's trying to figure out a way. How do I stay in power? Check this out. And then we'll take it on the other side.
Let me get a piece. Are you open to holding an election in your country?
Yes, of course. We are open for election, yes. We have to do safety circumstances, and a little bit we need to work in the parliament, because during the war you can't have elections, but we can do security. We need, maybe, how to say, we need a truth, yes, everywhere, in the battlefield, in the sky, and the sea, yeah, to make possible for people to do democratic, open, legal elections.
So you say during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now. So you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections. We happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections.
You might think this is funny. In fact, Zelensky laughed. His media, Donald Trump's media, tried to change the subject quickly because they understood that a lot of people are not going to take this as a joke because they know how this Führer's mind works. They know how this incompetent mind works. They know that he cares nothing or he has no shame. He has no possibility of knowing right from wrong. So they know. When he heard Zelensky says, "Well, I am staying. The reason we don't have elections right now is that we are at war, and unless we have a truce, unless we have a ceasefire, you can't expect the people to go out and vote, and that's why we don't have elections now." And right then, Donald Trump's ears went up. Oh, so if you're at war, and whether it's war from external in your country or civil war, or in other words, insurrections that I call insurrections, he calls everything an emergency now. I declare an emergency. And guess what? No elections. Folks, if you don't think this thug is thinking about that, rest assured that this was just an opportunity for him to put yet another test case into your psyche. Remember, he does all the bad things he does it in front of you most of the times because he wants to inoculate you when he actually does it for real. He wants you to be like that person inoculated against some sort of a poison because you have been made amenable to that poison over time. Again, we better watch out. We definitely better watch out. Anyway, yeah, Eric, I don't see you giving an answer, yes or no. If you found out this guy was a pedophile, if you found out that somebody comes out and corroborative evidence that he was in fact participating in that endeavor, would you still vote for him? That question was asked of Republicans, and 47% said they would, which is equivalent to about 15% of the United States population that actually say they would continue to vote for him. Your thoughts on that? I would be very interested in knowing if my MAGA base would still vote for him. I think Lee the Bearcat, aren't you a MAGA guy as well? Would you vote for him again? All right, let's see. Let's see. Para ver. Growing up in that fundamentalist world, it is not necessarily the same definition of age of consent. It is not surprising. Yeah, true. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Joe says the trafficking of, let's see, I got to go ahead and decline something here, folks. Don't know what that is. Anyway, what we got here is, well, the left-leaning polling of Orange Guy has not panned out well. That's true from Eric, right? That's not true, but we'll leave that for another time. Barbara Wilt says, Barb from Upper Peninsula. Is that what it means? Upper Peninsula? Is that what that means? Barbara Wilts, the Upper Peninsula in Michigan? I think. Let's see who else we've got here. Bruce Pollard is in the house. So many reasons why not to vote for Mr. T. We don't need to find others. That's very true, Bruce. That is on point. That is on point. But here's the thing, Bruce. That test wasn't about Donald Trump. That test was about whether, you hear me talk about reaching the other side. I also wrote the book, How It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relative Friends and Neighbors, right? But here's the thing that I think Michael Rutnan, by putting that piece up about the poll, I can talk to a lot of people, but for that person who, irrespective of what Donald Trump does, will continue to support him, for that person who, whether the president is a pedophile or not, would continue to support him, there's nothing we can do about that person. That person is, I think that person is mentally ill. And and that part is, I think at that level, you're almost near the point on recoverability. That deplorability is unrecoverable. Again, I don't speak like that to most folks. I speak to everybody. But I think at that point, we're talking about true deplorability. I don't see how, there's not two ways around that. Let's see what else we have. Joe, I think age and trafficking are felonies and disgusting. I was relating the morals I grew up with. I hear you, girl. All right. Michael says, Dragon NSV said a YouTube comment. It always starts with a joke. Then they normalize a joke. Then it's just their position. We can do right one after the other, right after the other. Welcome aboard. Let's see, Linda, Deb Child, Marcia Hodgkins, Elwin Hudson says, sound like the Antichrist to me. Ed Galuski, welcome aboard. Marcia Hodgkins. We also have Deb Child who says, FK Trump, he's on Putin's side, and Netanyahu. Barbara Fritante, welcome to our Substack, Barbara. Love me some Barbara. Barbara, I met Barbara at the convention. I think it was at the DNC, the Democratic National Convention in Charlotte, when we were going strong with the movement. What is it? What movement were we in? It was a Bernie Sanders movement. Yeah. We did a whole lot together. Her husband was a great organizer, a great union guy, a great union guy. Love him. Thank you for being here, Barbara. Diane Emanuel, welcome aboard. Marge KJ, Sheila McMullen. I agree they are mentally ill. There you go. Absolutely. So Barbara Fatan said, I am at the YMCA working out. Love you. You know I love you too, girl. You know I love you too. Get on that exercise. I kind of but you're always in shape, Barbara. You have always been in shape and energetic. I remember out there in Philadelphia going up those stairs, you had no problem. David Levitt, how is David? Met David at a Netroots Nation in I forgot where you reminded me the other day. Great to see you here. And Sandy Maxwell Miller, welcome aboard. All right, folks, we got a great video to play for. Well, before let me get to some more messages. E2247 says, I grieve that a sickness plagues the US. Really, all Northern Hemispheric society culture, leaving billions of persons apparently indifferent to the qualitative worse suffering than ever before known in history. Very true. The magnitude of what is happening in Gaza is so huge that it's no longer a quantitative Holocaust, but is now a qualitative demonism threatening to destroy all moral structures our species has instituted in the recent 3 million years. You know what is interesting to that E2247? We have reached to the point where we have learned how to use abstraction perfectly. I have to accuse myself of that as well, right? Abstraction, capitalism, abstraction, all these things that do evil. We have learned how to turn a blind eye to those things. And Gaza is one of those. It is so bad that it's so bad that we can't solve it. We just abstract it. And I want to thank E2247 for making sure that every day he comes onto this network, he forces me to mention Gaza and to mention the evil that is occurring in Gaza, even as sometimes we try to. You're absolutely right about everything you've just said, E2247. Paul Fleming says, of all the insanely immoral positions Trump holds, small counties should just let small countries should just let big countries take their land without fighting back. Is among the craziest. But he's a crazy man. He's a crazy man. Crap, I was about to check out some word link Eric had posted and I accidentally flipped to an old show and lost the chat. Well, let me see. Eric, just throw it back into the chat. Bruce Pollard says, I'm sending some bleach. Okay, I hear you, Bruce. Let's see what else we've got here. Ukraine is the same boat as Palestine, though many do not think so. I do know that. Let's see. Egberto, over 90% for a known rapist, Bill Clinton. Actually, that is what you guys projected Bill Clinton as a rapist. You guys projected that. Not because you guys lied about it, mean we bought it like you guys buy the other stuff. No, we don't. Bridge MCP says they do not believe anything he has done is real. No, the question to them, Bridge, was if you knew definitively that he did it, would you still vote for him? And 47% of them said yes. That is depravity. That is depravity. All right, let's see what else we got here. Or have you forgotten? No, I have not. No, I have not, sir. Okay, Bridge G says he has zero power to stop elections. It is up to the states. States' rights, what it's called. It's what it's called. All right, Bruce says you are just pedophobic. Behave yourself, Bruce. Stop it. Barbara Wilt says yes, the Michigan Upper Peninsula. All right, Bridge MCP, let me get to the video and then I'll continue reading the messages. We got to get to the video. Here we go, and then we'll come back to all of you. Welcome to another edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Today we're honored to have Adam Green. Adam Green is I would call him the CEO of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee.
I'm a proud co-founder, and we are at boldprogressives.org, where people can look us up. And I'm talking to one of the most technologically advanced, important pieces of indie media infrastructure out there. It's an honor to be here.
This guy is going to be the hell of a promoter. Anyway, look, first of all, you're doing some great work, and I love some ideas. Let me be frank here. This is a second take because our system actually screwed up. But here's what I want to say, Adam. You had me doing a whole lot of thinking after we had our conversation.
It was a great conversation. You guys really missed out. You really missed out on a wonderful conversation.
But actually, it's going to be just as wonderful now. What's the problem with the Democratic Party?
Well, what have you been thinking about since then?
Everything.
Yeah.
What I like to do, Adam, is the following. I like to listen to what people say all over, kind of massage it, and then come out with an answer. I do more listening than talking, even though I am talking right now, but I do a lot more listening than talking. It gives us the opportunity to come out with something that works.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, when the topics that you spoke about actually made a hell of a lot of sense. So let's start it.
Let's start
again.
So my starting point is lessons learned from 2024, where myself personally and our organization did a lot of work engaging the White House, showing them economic polling data and having a nice victory where Joe Biden used some of our recommended language verbatim in his final State of the Union. The idea that Republicans want to cut Social Security in order to give tax cuts to billionaires, something that was rarely said back then and now is commonplace, especially in the context of the Big Beautiful Bill, where we had that exact message with Medicaid and other programs. Fast forward a few months, we worked very closely with the Kamala campaign, and she took all three of our top recommendations, talk about grocery corporate price gouging, talk about taxing billionaires, talk about protecting Social Security. Every one of her speeches had those things. But when it came time for the debate with her and Trump, she won it with some beautiful abortion answers and some fine democracy answers, but did not throw one punch on economic issues, which was the number one issue for voters. And that said to me, I think a lot of voters believe she didn't really mean it. It wasn't in her heart, it wasn't in her gut. And towards the end of the campaign, I spent 9 days on the ground with bold economic populist, independent mechanic Dan Osborne running for Senate in Nebraska. And he dripped and oozed authenticity on working people's issues. Any question asked would be about workers versus corporations. And one of my big lessons since the election has been, we need politicians who are from the gut, not from the teleprompter. It's not sufficient to actually be on message if you don't mean it and you can't defend it. You have to live it, breathe it. Another lesson is we need people who are willing to pick fights with villains. A lot of this is about storytelling, and we have to be able to tell a story. And the third lesson is we need to channel outsider rage. We need to position ourselves on the outside, not be defending a crusty inside. And Hillary Clinton represented the inside while Donald Trump represented the outside position. And unfortunately, the same is true with Kamala by the end of the campaign. So those are my big three lessons. We need to have from the gut economic populism, pick fights with corporate villains, and channel outsider energy in order to get back on track and win again.
Now, one of the things that impressed me with some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier is you went as far as stating that AOC was actually viable because of where she stood. She did a test that pointed out that AOC had a lot of Trump voters, or a lot of Trump voters voted for AOC.
Yeah.
What's your thought about that? Kind of express what we discussed on that.
Yeah, after the election, AOC noticed that a lot of her own voters voted for Trump, and she posed the question on Instagram, why'd you do it? And the answer was not that there's some weird Venn diagram of Medicare for all supporters who don't like immigrants. That's not why people like Trump and Bernie or like Trump and AOC. It's that they said, you are challenging the system. You're busting up the system. So's he. That's why we voted for both of you. And it's really important for Democrats to keep that in mind, because it's not just about this policy or that policy. The threshold question for any, especially presidential campaign, is, are you channeling the outsider vibe right now? And if you're not, I think you're disqualified. So Gavin Newsom, please, no, he's out. He's out. He's not authentic. He's not an outsider. He's just like a creature of the inside. But there's some people in the middle. I love Ro Khanna. I think his policy positions are great. He's a wonderful, warm human being on a personal level. If he won the nomination, I'd be very happy. But also, I wonder, are the same mechanics and union people that supported Donald Trump and supported Dan Osborne, who I was on the ground helping in Nebraska, looking at Ro Khanna or someone like Pete Buttigieg and saying, that's my guy? I don't know. I think there's some gray areas, and we have to figure that out as a party.
Now, you mentioned Ro Khanna earlier, but there are some others that kind of tickled you as well.
Who tickled me?
Well, we earlier mentioned, after I told you about the judge in North Carolina, the Supreme Court Justice, I think her name was Riggs. Her name is Riggs.
Yeah.
We pointed out that is a type of authenticity and aggressiveness that people were looking for. I don't quite remember the other person that we counted, but it was a person in Michigan, a person in Iowa,
Yeah.
and a person in
Maine.
yeah, you know what
Maine,
I'm talking about.
Maine, yeah. So what we're reflecting on is that in order to save the country and fix a very broken Democratic Party, one way of doing it is have a bold, inspiring person run for president, win the nomination, win the presidency, and have the courage and backbone to push the rest of the party out of the way and say, this is my party now. It's not just about winning a few more inspirational people in Congress. It's about somebody who will reshuffle the entire deck and rebrand an entire broken party. And it's like, what would ever have to be true for scared electability voters, people who in 2020 were like, I love Bernie or I love Elizabeth Warren, but they just can't win. I have to vote for Joe Biden, right? How do we get them back on board for an actual transformational person? I think the answer is we need the optics of the 2026 election to be that someone bold, inspiring, transformational won in swing states and swing districts. That has to be the chatter, the conventional wisdom. And working backwards from that goal, there's a really important Iowa Senate race where we have, in a primary, actually 2 economic populists, either of whom would be good. J.D. Scholten, who was at this conference, Nathan Sage, who's a union guy and a veteran, both running for this nomination. If they knocked off Joni Ernst, the person who said everyone will die when asked about Medicaid cuts, so heartless, that would be a shockwave. No one sees it coming. And Iowa is the first presidential state, at least on the Republican side now. In Maine, we have Katie Porter's chief of staff, Jordan Wood, also worked for End Citizens United, anti-corporate money, anti-corruption, running against Susan Collins. He raised $2 million in his first quarter. If he knocked off Susan Collins after so many people tried, and it was somebody on an anti-corporate money message, anti-corruption, that would be huge. And then in Michigan, at this conference, Abdul El Sayed is running for Senate. And he's an economic populist, he's pro-working people. And Alyssa Slotkin, who's a fine Democrat, won that seat in the last election. But if a bold, vibrant, economic populist progressive also won in Michigan, that would prove, you know what? You don't have to be whatever your definition of centrist or moderate or mushy is. You can be vibrant and still win in the Midwest. So those are some of the people that I think if they won would set the tone, set the conditions for the 2028 primary that would allow people's heart and head to be united and vote for someone truly inspiring, which we need to save the country and save the Democratic Party.
I think, believe it or not, in a sort of different way, I think that's what Trump proved, isn't it? Because what he did is triangulated Democrats.
Yeah.
He became to the working class what Democrats thought they were.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he outflanked us on some of our actual issues and certainly on the vibes. Someone, my friend Jen Ancona, who's done some research on Democratic ads versus Republican ads, was telling me today. So one of the benefits of the file being corrupted is that here's a little update for you. She was saying that Republican ads are 80% storytelling and our ads are 80% policy. Yeah. And they were saying Trump ads would be like, he's the guy who wants no tax on tips. He's the guy who wants no tax on Social Security. And then it's like 25 seconds of just like on your side, economic populism, pro-worker stuff. And our stuff is like, wonky policy here and wonky policy there and, cut art and weird fonts and nothing personal. And it just isn't emotionally compelling. And that's something, our storytelling is broken. And therefore, a lot of working people thought Trump's my guy when they shouldn't have. So we got to repair that. And that's why we need, outsider vibes, people who are picking fights with corporate villains, and people who are, just not perceived as of the system.
I tell you what, as an independent journalist, that is something I have had to learn. That is something that I'm learning. For a long while, I was a front page or an actual contributing editor to Daily Kos. And
now, what is the Daily Kos?
The Daily Kos is the largest. In fact, it's where this started. Yeah.
A little bit of a joke there. Okay.
Yeah, I know you're joking. I know you're joking.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't know. Yeah. So it's something we have to express. It's the largest progressive rag out there, and for the longest time in writing, that is where I think I failed. Because I had all the answers. I'm an engineer by training, and I had all the answers in numbers. And I always tell people, for me, it's all about numbers and facts. Unfortunately, for most people, it's not numbers and facts. It's about what I feel and where I am.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Somebody else at this conference told me that people remember a statistic for like X number of minutes, basically, or it might have been seconds, but stories stay with you. Right. And that's why I think it's important to talk about how Dan Osborne, when I was on the ground watching him, any reporter or voter who would ask him a question about economics, immigration, climate, he'd always make it about workers versus corporations.
Right.
Not because he was media trained, but because that's who he was. And we need people who just are from the gut like that. In contrast, I actually showed a video at a panel that I led yesterday, and it featured this guy named Derek Thompson. He is the co-author of Abundance with Ezra Klein at a panel in DC about a month ago called Welcome Fest, where he was on stage and he said, some people say, this is like a big centrist, branded conference, I'd say. He's like, some people say Donald Trump has a story and people on the left have a story and we in the center need a story. You know what my answer to that is? Stories are for children. We just need policies and plans.
Wait.
And this is a guy.
That was with the book plan?
This is, to be fair, I don't believe this is in the book, but this shows the political instincts of this particular author of the book, who's up on a stage in front of a bunch of politicians, giving them this ridiculous political advice. And one of my critiques of Abundance, having not read it, but assuming that I would like some of the things in it and not like others, is it was not written to be a political document. It was written to be a wonky behind-the-scenes policy document that has been misinterpreted, given our loss, as some kind of political mantra. And meanwhile, the guy who wrote it, who's a policy wonk, is like, we don't need storytelling. Yeah. Oh my God, did he pay attention to all of the Trump elections, right? It's a crazy notion, but that's why I say we need to be willing to pick fights with villains and tell stories. And not all Democratic politicians believe that. Some people say, I'm fighting for everybody. Imagine a Superman movie with no villains. How boring a movie would that be? If Democrats are the hero of our own story, if progressives are the hero, we need to be fighting someone. We can't be fighting. There's no such thing as fighting for everybody.
About that Abundance book, it's interesting because I refuse to read it. I thought about actually buying it, and I don't have much time to read these big books anyway.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things that it came out and some of the messaging was really to sort of protect the corporate class in it. They were talking about abundance, but in sort of a manner that ensured the corporate classes maintain the status quo. It is shameful. In other words, we have to stop preaching, what's the word? Not sequestered. You have to stop preaching.
Redistribution?
No. Actually, they don't want, you're right. Yeah. Not redistribution, but somehow abundance. But there's a word that I'm looking for. I can't pick it up right now.
Okay.
But I think it's important what you said. We have to have that story, and that story has to connect.
Like austerity? Like austerity or...
Austerity, that's the word. Yeah. That's the word.
Yeah.
Sometimes my mind goes. Goes.
Do you want to just do it again? We'll fix it in editing?
Huh?
Want to just do it again and we'll fix it in editing? Just kidding. We're keeping it real here. No fixing and editing.
And anybody who watches my videos know.
Okay.
We're real, baby.
Okay, we're real.
But here's the thing. Because everybody has those laps. When you start getting up there in age, you'll get there someday.
Thank you.
You start to have these little things like, I can't remember the word austerity. But,
I'm with you.
But it's so important for us to do that. Environmental issues is a working class issue. And we can make, even though a lot of the gay issues and the social issues can be made working class issues, but you have to know what to do. You have to get away from some of the wonkiness. And don't let them fool you. You still need to be woke.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, it's not that hard when you think about it, right? If you're talking about the climate stuff, are you talking about CO2 emissions and 2050 standards and X% of this degree? Or you're thinking the posh people living up there on the hill have really clean water. Right. Why are kids drinking polluted water? What's that going to do to their health? People get that immediately. That's a story. Why is that hard? Why is that hard? Right.
Do you see what you did there? Normally we would say, the neoliberals, the centrists who want to say, we need to fix the water issue with them, not having the villain.
You need a villain. You always need a villain. But again, there's people actually out there preaching, people who are considered credible, preaching to very important political candidates and politicians saying, you don't need to pick a fight with villains. Billionaires are part of the big tent. We're fighting for everybody, growth for all. And it's like, when Amazon is both screwing over their own workers and saying to little guy small businesses who are on Amazon, oh, we see your data, you have a good business, we're going to replicate it and push you down to page 50 while we put ourselves on page 1. Like, that's a villain. And small businesses should be outraged, and workers should be outraged, and it's hurting our economy. It's shrinking our economic opportunity, and there's a villain there. We can't. It's not growth for all. We have to be willing to pick fights on behalf of the little guy.
Billionaires are the villains, and this is not just conjecture. This is not just us looking for a villain. They are a villain. Give me a closer.
Give you a closer? The closer would be about Netroots itself, especially in light of COVID. There's not enough time to talk to people. I see you once a year, and it's always a pleasure to see you. And you have these wonderful conversations. You have conversations in the hallway. I've reflected in this conversation of other conversations I've had.
Right.
And it's really important that as a community, we make time to actually talk to each other, think together, and plot together a little bit. Because, the big guys they talk. They get paid to talk in the Chamber of Commerce rooms. And we got to make sure we're organizing together. And it's really an honor to be here with you and with our fellow compatriots here who care about indie media and independent thinking.
Well, Adam Green from the Bold Progressive Change Campaign Committee. You have to tell people how they can support you.
Sure. Well, we actually invented a $3 ask. Back when people were asking for $20, we were like, if you can afford $3, chip in at boldprogressives.org. It was very heartwarming when we got off the ground 16 years ago that senior citizens would write us handwritten notes saying, I can't afford $5 or $10. I can do $3. I really believe in your mission, so here it is. And we keep that in our heads all the time as we're hiring people and doing our activities. But we do half elections, half government relations, and it really makes a difference when people go to boldprogressives.org and chip in. Follow us on our social media accounts, Bold Progressive. I'm Adam Green across social media. So please follow us and get involved. We're thrilled to work with you.
I want to add something here, and this now is some serious statement about progressive groups. I come to Netroots every year. I try to get as many people on as possible, and I try to get as many people who have organizations to come out here and talk about the organizations and how you can actually help those organizations do the good work that they're doing. Message to any of these organizations listening out there. In this business, which is supporting people, 1 + 1 is not equal to 2. 1 + 1 is equal to 3. 1 + 1 can equal 10. When you collaborate, you can get a wider net than trying to get the net alone. Adam Green, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so kindly for having been here.
Thank you, sir.
With Politics Done Right.
Always. Thank you for all you're doing.
All of our country's problems, from polarization to ignorance on domestic and international issues to a complete misunderstanding of our economic and healthcare systems, are a direct result of a derelict mainstream media that too often bend over backwards to support corporate or bought politicians' wants as opposed to the people's needs for real information to make their lives better. Independent media is the only solution to inform truthfully and factually. Why? Because our loyalties are to you, the ones who fund us with small dollar contributions and subscriptions. Please consider supporting our independent media platforms by subscribing to our Egberto Off the Record newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. It's an investment that pays incalculable dividends. Absolutely so, folks. Anyhow, I think we have Joanne on the line. Joanne, talk to me.
Hello, Mr. Egberto Willis. Thank you for what you do. I have a very brief thing about the focus of the pedophilia trafficking issue. Because Christians, from my background, they don't care that much about the age, at least up until even 12 years old. Before that, it's a problem. Focus on the trafficking. You will affect them more. They will listen. So when the question was asked about the age, it's not going to show up in the polling. If they focus on the trafficking, they will be upset about that.
So let me ask you about this, Joe. So are you saying that if the question was posed, and I don't exactly know what the question was that they posed, if it was found that Donald Trump was into sex trafficking, you're saying that you think those numbers would be 47%?
Exactly, they would not be cool with that.
I think that would be
the age isn't a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, but true.
You know what? It would be good. It would be good for you to throw something like that up on different media and see what it comes out to be. I'll be curious about that because yeah, I see
I
your
don't know how
point,
to
and
throw it up to different media.
yeah,
I'm
that's
telling you.
yeah, we'll do that. But I mean, that's that's why we open up and listen to people how people think. And you remember, as I was speaking to Adam Green, I told him I like to do a lot of listening because what you just put there is a very important distinction, right? In other words,
I wouldn't
if
know
it,
my
it
great grandmas if that wasn't true about them all being married off so young and
at
everything.
12 years
But
old,
I
you're
did.
correct. Right. It's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that is something to be considered. It's pathetic to me that a 12-year-old would be with a
It is pathetic.
40-year-old
It's
man,
sad.
right? To me, it is,
Right.
all right. But I get what you're saying. Thank you for that, Joe. Something worth thinking
Thank
about.
you.
All right, you take care, sis.
Bye.
All right. Anyway, and something else I want to talk about, and I want to hit up E2247 on that. Please don't say this again, my brother. He said, Egberto, thank you for your efforts and your work taking seriously my pitiful opinion and reading it out loud to all PDR community. Please don't ever say that again. You have done the responsible and consistent thing, keeping our eyes focused on Gaza and the 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 genocide and the evil that is occurring there and the support that we as Americans implicitly are providing that. It needs to be rubbed in our face. It needs to be rubbed in our face. When I think about it, and when I think, I mean, one of our people in the morning show, he asked me how comes I'm talking about it when I stayed away from the subject completely on KPFT, and I did that mostly for 501c3 reasons at KPFT, but it became too much. And at that point, I felt like I was failing in not speaking about the subject with with the gravity that it represents, with the evil that it represents. So please, brother E2247, please keep forcing that issue, sir. I mean, it is sad what we have become. It is really sad. All right, let's see what else I've got here. What else I've got here? Michael said, Egberto, I'm starting to worry about you. You're forgetting names of people you want to name drop. I often have the same problem. Age catching up with both of us. Yeah, but I think for me also it's a lack of sleep and age, man. But one of my friends told me start writing things down. It's like OR. I knew the Bernie Sanders thing, and I kept on saying our revolution, our revolution. Hell, I was a part of our revolution, and I couldn't remember the damn our revolution. Anyway, I got you, brother. I got you. All right, let's see what else we got here before we continue. Uh, Trafficking people was heavy in last administration. Oh Lord. You know, I know. Last night, last night I actually had a speech for Democrats abroad. A group of Democrats abroad got together in Mexico. I don't remember the city. I want to say it is on the Pacific coast. No, they had our time, so it must have been close to Cancun or one of those places. And the speech was supposed to be about birthright citizenship and as a naturalized citizen, how I felt about it, etc. So I gave the speech, and then after the speech, it was a question and answer session. And it was quite a few Democrats out there at the meeting, and the questions were nonstop. We had the call via Zoom, and the most intelligent questions you would ever hear. And I brought this up because Lee the Bearcat talks about the trafficking under the Biden administration and all this misinformation that is actually cauterizing in the minds of those who have allowed themselves to be used by the right wing media. And many of the questions that we're asking came about, what do we do? How do we solve these problems in people being so ill-informed, misinformed, disinformed? And I finally told them that, what you've heard me say many times before, we have to engage all these people, because what we did too often as Democrats, and Adam Green referred to that or inferred that as well, we have left a vacuum. And anybody who studies a bit of science understands that vacuums in an atmospheric, with under atmospheric pressure, inherently something fills that space. And we have allowed that space to be filled by the plutocracy, the oligarchy, by the evangelicals. We have allowed them to create a false narrative. They create an alternate state of reality. And I look on my chat here where we have a group of MAGA folks, a group of right wingers who have completely bought the Kool-Aid. And I have no animosity towards these people. I just don't understand how they have allowed their minds to be so maligned. I just don't get it, right? But I won't ever stop putting out the fact-based information and hope. And I don't believe in hope, but in this case, that's all I've got. I hope that one of two things happen. Their respect for me, they're here all of the times, will eventually have them questioning what they hear. But number two, which is more likely to happen, is that as the policies of this administration becomes a reality before Democrats and progressives are able to take over again, that they would have been hit so hard that whether they tell us or not, they will vote like under the Obama administration, their interest over their prejudices, their interests over their fears, their interests over their rearing. And I think one or the other is going to happen. Unfortunately, one hopes that it's not too late, because for all these MAGA folks in our chat right now, they're throwaways for Trump. Trump doesn't give a holy you know what about these people. They could die tomorrow and he doesn't care. They could starve tomorrow and he doesn't care. It's amazing. Michael has an interesting comment. If you lose the story, you've lost the plot. For any policy wonk who doesn't understand that, your policies and statistics are meant to push a story. I tell those policy wonks to get out of politics. Exactly. And that is what Adam Green was talking about. I want to play TikTok. This TikTok is from a professor that I respect a lot. I want you to hear what he has to say here and take it for what it's worth. I think it's a prescient TikTok that we all have to heed. Let's go ahead and do that right now.
Of all the moments in this whole messy, miserable year, this is the one that signals we might be crossing a historical threshold. I don't think it's just another news cycle, as this regime runs from Epstein, Putin, Gaza, and all that, all massive things. This could be a hinge moment. And if you're not paying attention, you might start now. This is why. History's filled with moments when a government's decision to deploy its military against its own people represents an irrevocable step. Now, we have crossed that line a couple of times already just in the last couple of months, but this one is hitting different for me. It gives Boston 1770. It gives Chicago 1894. It gives DC 1932, bonus army. It gives Kent State 1970. I know there have been other moments, and there are going to be, but this one raises a historian's spidey senses because we've seen this play before, and it rarely ends well. Because what's happening is this dangerous fusion of optics and substance. The substance is a ruling power exercising almost absolute control, right? Trying to, at least, by systematically tearing down the constitutional guardrails that protected citizens' freedom. So the nation's military, which I used to be part of, once the shield of the republic, it's reforged into this regime's personal sword, deployed against its own people to ensure the government's authority is absolute and answers to no one but itself. Even if that's not true, they want to perform it. They want to show that it might be true. They want it to seem true. And so the optics leading into that are this straight line historical echo of the Civil War and Reconstruction. Okay, this is what gets me going right here. This moment, this in the story. Close your eyes and listen to this. The South Carolina militia is being deployed to Washington, D.C. by the order of the president. I know it says National Guard. I know it's Ohio and West Virginia too, but it's still South Carolina, and the National Guard is the modern militia. The South Carolina militia is being deployed to D.C. You don't need a history degree to feel that kind of toxic symbolism in the sentence. It deliberately, or maybe it accidentally, invokes the deepest divisions in American history, putting a symbol of the Old South, of this old regime, against a seat of federal power, a city that is majority black and has a complex history with civil rights and federal authority. I mean, think about the population of the nation's capital. I lived there for 10 years. Urban, diverse, overwhelmingly progressive. Now think about the likely makeup of National Guard units from South Carolina, Ohio, and West Virginia. More rural, more conservative, and geared to see threats where we would see people. And when a state turns its military inward, it's broadcasting to the whole world that it thinks its civil institutions are no longer relevant. So the story being written right now is not about restoring order. It's about what happens when the tools of war are in servitude of the regime's politics. The possible endings are few, and most of them are very, very bad.
And that is what we are up against. When I saw this piece, like I said, the TikToks that if you follow professors and other scholars in your TikTok stream, you're going to start getting a whole lot of these guys. And all these things that the ones that I bring up here can be corroborated. Something that we need to look at. Now, like I said earlier, I had a great time talking to the uh, Democrats abroad in Mexico. Something big is happening in Texas right now, of course. And that is what again? That is, let me go ahead and pull it up on Common Dreams. Representative Collier, Representative State Rep Collier is being held hostage in the Texas state capitol because she refuses to sign that it's okay for her to be chaperoned by a Texas DPS officer. Apparently all the other Democrats signed the release. To which I have to ask all the other Democrats, why did you sign the release? Why not create let me we talk about how Democrats fight, etc. All right? They all sign a release so that they can go home and take showers and all of that. Otherwise, the governor claim he'll lock them in, etc. What best to show our American population? What best to show the autocracy not only on the federal level with Donald Trump, but on the state level with Greg Abbott? What best way to force them to lock you into the Capitol and for you to use your cell phone and broadcast throughout the world that you're locked up? Where's the fight? Where the hell is the fight? The Democratic state rep Nicole Collier was forced to spend the night Monday inside the Texas Capitol building in Austin after she refused to sign a permission slip to accept the mandatory escort by the Department of Public Safety imposed on Democrats by Republicans who control the chamber. Republican House Speaker Dustin Burrows announced a restriction on members of the Democratic caucus earlier in the day after Democrats returned after a 2-week hiatus out of state to prevent quorum in the House, a way to block a controversial mid-decade redistricting effort by the GOP that aims to hand the party up for 5 more seats in the midterm. CNN reports that majority of the Democrats in the caucus complied with the law enforcement escort, showing reporters what they called permission slips they received to leave the House floor and pointing to the officers escorting them around the Capitol. But not Collier, who represents the Fort Worth area District 95. I refuse to sign. I will not agree to be in DPS custody, Collier said. I am not a criminal. I am exercising my right to resist and oppose the decision of our government. So this is my form of protest. In a video posted on, she pointed it out on video, etc. Again, my question is, why did all the Democrats refuse to sign that slip? It would have been a lot more effective not to show a slip that show you're subservient to a DPS officer. You were elected by tens of thousands of Texans. Tens of thousands of Texans elected you. And you acquiesced. Would it be so difficult to hold on a couple days to show that what autocracy does? Thank you, Collier, or State Representative Collier. Thank you, Collier. March KJ says the whiny white Republicans are nuts. This is illegal. I don't understand the other Dems for not fighting. It boggles the mind. It boggles my mind. But anyway, we're at the closing time, folks. I got to get out of here. All your commentary, thank you for leaving all of that, folks. I can't get all of that. Egberto, send yourself an email. Why would I send myself an email? Let's see. But anyhow, folks, wow. A lot of the commentary I missed, I'll go through. But here's what I want to tell you guys. We have to be in this together, and we have to support the sources that are keeping the sanity, the sources that are informing, including yours truly. So what I want to ask of all those who have the wherewithal is to consider becoming paid subscribers of our network, Egberto Off the Record, which also Politics Done Right is a part of. Egberto Off the Network we use to fund all our platforms. So please consider at your earliest convenience. I can tell you that we haven't yet broken even, and it would be great if we could get hundreds more supporters to get us to that point, because we're currently in an unsustainable situation. So I ask kindly that those of you who have the wherewithal to do so, to please become paid subscribers of Politics Done Right. It is an easy thing to do. If you're on Substack already, just click the our button and become a paid subscriber. If you're not, you can just go to even if you're on already, just go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, and become a paid subscriber. I'm putting that into the feed right now in both feeds. Please consider supporting us. We cannot do this without you. We are the ones who are going to maintain our democracy. We are the ones who are going to promote the message. We are the ones who are going to ensure that most Americans are well informed, even as there is a hell of a lot of pressure from the mainstream media to disinform. So please help us the best you can. It is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. I got to get out of here. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right, I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.